Back here in the House of Pain, I'm the Common Man, Dan Cole. Dennis Thompson of the ARP Wave Clinic is with me. And back to some more email questions from listeners from previous shows. Someone writes, I have MS. Can your system help me?
Again, it will not do anything for the disease, but what MS does is it strips the patient of strength. And as they progressively lose their strength, they progressively lose their ability to gain strength. So in other words, if you're too weak to go to a health club to work out, you're not going to work out, and therefore you're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. So eventually you stop losing that ability to be able to stimulate your muscle on your own, and then you're basically sitting in a wheelchair. Think of our system as an external brain. Just because your brain can't send the appropriate signal to your muscles to do what they're supposed to do doesn't mean that an external source can't. And that's what we do. We use the electrical device called the ARP to stimulate the muscle, therefore replacing the signal sent by the nervous system in the body. The same result is the same result. The muscle gets stronger and mobility is dramatically increased. We've had many MS patients who within a month have gained anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half in size on their leg muscles that were atrophying away.
You always mention a number two about how many times the muscle contracts. It's like you can only do it on your own, like two times?
2 times a second. That is correct.
And with the ARP wave, you can do it 500 times?
500 times a second. And that's very, very, very important because if you're an MS patient, as an example, and you're going through physical therapy or you're going, traditionally, MS is going to give you rigid muscles. It's going to give you spastic muscles. It's going to give you tremors. All of those are very counterproductive to a healthy lifestyle and a quality of life that they deserve. Well, if they're just doing regular therapy, they're able to contract that muscle at 2 times a second. We're able to contract it at 500 times a second, 30,000 contractions per minute. It would take the average MS patient 5 years to do what we do in 15 minutes. That's the difference.
Here's another question. I have a spinal cord injury. Can your system help me?
Yes, we work with a lot of spinal cord patients, not to basically do anything miraculous, but simply to increase their quality of life. The goal is to get them out of a chair. The goal is to get them ambulatory. That's a very, very lofty goal. Take Christopher Reeve as an example. We tried in vain to work with Dr. John McDonald out of St. Louis with Christopher Reeve. There's not a doubt in my mind we could have changed the outcome of that, but that's hearsay. We have a lot of patients that if the cord is not severed or if the cord is not severely kinked, so to speak, like taking this cord here in the studio and just cramming it down so the energy can't get through there, if that cord's not cut, we can definitely help them. Now, how do you do that? You simply use an external source to send a signal to the muscle. The muscle doesn't know if it's coming from an external source or an internal source. It's still going to react the same way. I just had a patient in Queensland, Australia, who we've been working with now on our virtual clinic where we can treat anyone anywhere in the world. They don't have to come to the clinic. And that's very important for people like in Duluth or way up north or wherever. They don't have to come to the clinic. We can literally treat them over a webcam on their computer, just like they're sitting in our office. As long as we can see them and we can direct the pad placement, the electrode placement, we can treat them. And we're treating this guy who's a incomplete CV, spinal cord injury. And last night we had a breakthrough. We've been stimulating his nervous system, and for the first time, he had contractions in his calves. For the first time in 21 years, he could voluntarily contract his calves. That tells me within a year's time, we'll have him ambulatory.
Amazing. Here's another question. I have degenerative disc disease. Can your system help me?
Well, again, we're not going to do anything for the disease, and that's kind of a name put on a symptom, and that means that it's progressively getting worse. And again, think of it as the shock absorbers on a car that are getting worn, and sooner or later they stop absorbing shock. Anytime you have a disc problem, it is coming from a muscle that's not absorbing the force to keep it out of the disc. If we take a jelly donut common and we start putting pressure on the jelly donut, sooner or later jelly's going to come out of the donut. We take the pressure off, the jelly doesn't come out of the donut. So what we do is we don't do anything for the disease. What we do is work on the healthy muscles that are protecting that area, applying pressure to the disc, and take the pressure off the disc, and immediately you have pain relief.
Another question says, I've been told I have spinal stenosis. Can your system help?
Yes, absolutely. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients that have come in with spinal stenosis. And again, what happens is the muscles are doing their job protecting. They narrow the opening, and that's where the stenosis comes from. So we get restricted blood supply, we get restricted movement, we get a lot of pain. If we take that pressure off of that muscle, allow it to move freely, and consequently the blood supply is increased dramatically because we're contracting the muscle at such high velocity. The strength increases dramatically because we're increasing the number of contractions from 2 to 500, and consequently we'll take away the pain very quickly.
Final question for this show. I have a grade 2 hamstring tear. Can your system help me?
Oh, absolutely. We see probably 10 to 20 of those a week. That's really how we got involved in the NFL. We had Edgerrin James, who had a grade 2 hamstring tear after a game. They said he was going to be gone for approximately 3.5 to 4 weeks. They were getting ready to play Green Bay. I know the Packer fans aren't going to like to hear this, but they were getting ready to play Green Bay. We started working with him on Monday. Remember how we saw you in 10 sessions? Mm-hmm. With our pros, that we have to condense that window down because we want to get them on the field as fast as possible. We worked on Edge 4 times on Monday, slept with the ARP on Monday night, 4 times on Tuesday, slept with it on Tuesday night, 2 times on Wednesday, had an MRI Wednesday afternoon, had no more tear. On Thursday, he practiced. On Sunday, he had 125 yards against the Packers. Hasn't been hurt since.
Because the ARP wave system, as we said before, is not just to relieve you of the pain and correct that condition, but you use it for training.
Oh, we train, we train healthy muscles every day of the week.
If you'd like some more information, call 952-431-9708 or go to arpwave.com, arpwave.com. In the last minute and a half or so that we have on the show, someone says, I want to give this a try, I want to look. You have the great offer form that you're giving the initial treatment to see if you can help at no charge. What can they sort of expect if they say, let's go ahead with this? What would the timetable look at? What would they do?
Timetable would be 10 days. The first 4 days, they would be pain-free. No matter what level of pain they're in right now, they're going to be pain-free. Now, let's identify what pain-free means. Pain-free means a pain level of 1 or 2, not 0, because nobody is pain-free. In other words, everybody has a feeling of something. I mean, you and I have had this conversation many times. To us, pain-free is if you can move freely and do any activity that you want to do without having to stop that activity, that's usually a pain of 1 or 2. I do not let any of my professional athletes compete at any level above 2. 1 and 2, they can compete all day long and twice on Sunday. So 4 days, they're going to be at a pain of 1 or 2. The next 6 days, they're going to build their strength beyond their wildest dreams. I told you that within that 10-day period of time, your arm would be bigger. It was. If we're working on the left arm, and the right arm is going to be about an inch smaller by the time we're done in those 10 days. Again, we're contracting at a very high velocity. And then after that, their quality of life will dramatically change.
Let's do this. Let's give that a website again. It's arpwave.com, arpwave.com. All the shows to date are on the clinic website because we've done 12 of these shows now. Or you can call 952-431-9708 or go to arpwave.com, A-R-P-P as in Paul, arpwave.com. As always, Dennis, thank you. It's just great stuff.
Always good seeing you, Colin.
Yep, and we'll see you next week again.
Very
That's
good.
Dennis Thompson of the ARP Wave Clinic. I'm the Common Man, Dan Colt. This has been the House of Pain. You're listening to it on AM 1130, KFAN, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
For more on how ARP Wave Technologies can help you, log on to arpwave.com. This has been the House of Pain on The Fan.